Today we begin the letter of James, which to me is one of my favorite books in the Bible because it's filled with very clear, easy to understand, not always easy to live, but easy to understand counsel and wisdom about how to be a faithful follower of Jesus. And as we go through this week with James, you're going to hear that what he says, it's, again, unmistakable. So we start with James chapter 1, verse 27, where James says, "Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this, to care for orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world." So religion that's pure and undefiled. In other words, what we should be aiming for in religion? To care for orphans and widows in their distress. Orphans and widows represented in James' time the two most vulnerable groups of people that existed. Orphans, both then and even today, are very vulnerable and often subject to exploitation, tragically often sexual exploitation by evil, unscrupulous people. And we've seen this even with situations in places like Ukraine. Orphans and widows, and again in James' time, there weren't things like Social Security or pensions, and so a widow was a very vulnerable person. So religion that's pure and undefiled, what should we be aiming for? To look and see who are the most vulnerable in our time, who are the most likely to struggle financially, to have enough food, to be safe, to be cared for, to have support. Whoever is in that group, those are people that we as Christians should be caring for, supporting, trying to assist, trying to ease their suffering. So caring for those who are most vulnerable, that's part of pure and undefiled religion. The other part of the verse is to keep oneself unstained by the world. And again, the world here meaning the values of the world that are contrary to the principles and the values of the kingdom of God that Jesus teaches, that we read about in the New Testament. For example, in the world, it's all about what can I get for myself. Greed is encouraged. Doing things without regard for how they impact other people. Short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. Not thinking about what's good for the community or for the good of all. There's all kinds of examples of the world says if someone hurts you, get even. If someone hits you, hit them back harder. These aren't kingdom principles. And so we want our faith to both motivate us positively to care for the most vulnerable and the most needy, and also in a negative way to stay clear of influences that would take us away from the path that Jesus lays out for us as we seek to follow him in truth, in love, and in peace.